Well, let's jump into this. This is about budgeting for business. And it's kind of one of the parts of the accelerator program, help people put together their budget for their business.
Yeah.
Budget can be a friendly word or it can be a bad word for people, depending on how you look at it. People look at it differently. It's different ways. We're going to talk about the value of budgeting for business, some key elements of it, and then some tools, and then we'll do some kind of hands-on work as well. All right. So I'm trying to keep it real basic, but the value of this, whether it's for a business or your personal life or anything having to do with money, the budget helps create some clear boundaries, because when we think we kind of have a handle on things in our head, we typically overestimate our ability to do that. And we get outside our boundaries. When we get outside our boundaries, we get into some trouble. So having some clear boundaries laid out is really important. Also helps set some healthy expectations. We, again, tend to be one way or the other. We tend to be overly conservative or overly optimistic. People tend to tip one way or the other. And depending on which way you go, if you're overly conservative, you may not dream big enough and you may not put enough out there to be successful. But if you're overly optimistic, you can get overextended and cash flow can go bad and you can have all kinds of trouble. So putting things down on paper really helps solidify that and make some clarity and some clear expectations, which then in result reduces surprises. There's nobody really likes surprises. So especially money surprises, rarely are they in our favor. Usually the surprises are negative. So we don't want to reduce those surprises. We want to create a realistic timeline and know how long money is going to work or last, or how long our income or revenue is going to be, or how long our expenses will dry up the cash flow. And putting that into a realistic budget creates a timeline that is more realistic. We think, I'll break even in the first few months, but when you put it on paper, you realize it might take you a year. But then you have a realistic timeline, so you're investing now for the payoff later. But if that's just all in your head, it's just not real clear and can lead to a lot of frustration. And ultimately, the big one is that you want to avoid debt, and a budget can help you stay inside the lanes of the parameters you have of your income and expenses. So the budget's designed to just be a guide in that sense. It's a little bit of guesswork, but it can be educated guesswork as you go along. There's ways to forecast and plan safely and wisely and have a range that's pretty realistic you can expect to do. So these are all the values of it. And people don't do it because they're just lazy. They don't take the time to do it. It's like planning for anything. You have to spend a little time to carve out a little time to plan ahead. And if you can plan ahead and think through some things ahead of time, it takes away a lot of stress later on. But people get in a hurry and they skip over this process and they just hope it all lasts. But you quickly find yourself with more month than money and you wish you had a budget. So budgeting is wise and helps you kind of get a real good handle on where you think things will go and how they'll go as you go along. Okay, the key elements, right? There's just two basic. There's cost, money going out, and income, money coming in. But in the cost section, you've got startup costs that are unique to just getting going in a business. So you have to, those are like one-time costs that you have to do to get started. Like if you don't have a computer or you don't have a vehicle and you need that, you'd have to go get that. This would be startup cost. And then there's fixed overhead costs. These are things that happen pretty much the same cost every month. So if you had a cell phone bill or if you had a subscription for something that was a fixed cost, you would know what that would be and you could put that in your budget. And then there's the variable cost, and many things change the variable cost. The economics, your sales, economy, all kinds of things can affect the variable cost of what those costs are. So you have to estimate those. And then the revenue obviously is many ways that would come in. So if we look at these specifically, right, startup costs would include both startup assets and startup expenses. And you would have to factor those things in to get going. If you didn't know what they were, if you couldn't research them, you could ask around and find out what people are paying for a similar startup cost. If you haven't already incurred them, you could find those out and get a pretty good estimate of what those would be. On the fixed overhead, some examples would be your rent, your mortgage, payroll if you're paying somebody else, any insurance, website hosting that you might have, internet or phone, If you're paying an accountant, you're paying legal, that would be probably fixed. Hopefully you're not paying any bank fees. I don't like paying bank fees. Any leases you would have that are just set every month, those would be in there too. So that's the fixed overhead. And then the variable, if you sold product, like Sana has a product that she's making, and if she doubled her sales from month to month, then she would have to probably go buy more supplies to make more of her product to sell. And so that creates a variability in your budget as you go along. So that would be a good one, hopefully, that you increase sales would increase the ability to make more and then grow the business. But other variables could be utility costs. They change. Even food and travel now is very much fluctuating. You know, the gas price is so high that varies from time to time. So these are all things that you would have on a varying basis that you'd want to factor in as well. Finally, the revenue, right? Forecasting your earnings. So this is really important. Your revenue could come in the form of sales. It could be savings. It could be grants. It could be loans, donations, all kinds of different things could be revenue. But it's important that you kind of take two approaches to it: a very conservative projection, and then also a very optimistic. You can take the optimistic and the conservative, because probably it's going to come in somewhere between those two. The danger of just picking one is that you're working all of your business towards this one extreme here. And if you don't have this range, it can be a little frustrating. So having a range to kind of know which way things are going and what would happen if you got a better number or a lesser number, how long can you last and make things work if things go either good or bad. So having a forecast that kind of shoots both optimistically and conservatively gives you two numbers, but it gives you a range then that you can kind of live within. Hopefully it's inside of that. All right, what tools would you use for this? Well, let me back up. When you think about these things right here, what of these four elements of the budget, which one do you think is the hardest to project?
Revenue.
Yeah, right. Why would that be?
Because it depends on the other ones, and if they get screwed, then the revenue doesn't work.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you have ultimate control over what you spend, but you don't have ultimate control over who spends money with you, right? So you do your best at projecting that, and you can see how people can get in some trouble if they over project their revenue, it doesn't come in, right? When you hear big companies, right? Amazon lost money in the first quarter this year, and it messed everybody up. And part of it was their expenses were really high. They invested a whole lot in their distribution. They bought planes and factories and then hired a bunch of people. So they put a lot of startup new cost into their budget for the first year or the first part of the year, but the revenue didn't cover all of that. But I think they planned that. But at the end of the day, the investors were going, wait a minute, because they're supposed to make money every quarter. So yeah. Revenue is the hardest one to project there. That's why having the range of optimistic and conservative is so important to kind of think about both of those. All right. So if you're going to create a budget, what tools would you use to create it?
The ones you just flashed on the slide and then you took it back. I forgot what it was. It was two things. Somebody Google Sheets or Excel.
Oh, you're so sharp, Sana. You got me. Excel and Google Sheets. Yes. So there's tools out there that do budgeting. I don't care for them. I like just a blank spreadsheet and building my own budget out of that. Spreadsheets are simple programs, but very powerful. They can do a lot of things. If you know the right formulas and to do things, you can do just about anything you want with a spreadsheet as it relates to numbers and data. So I prefer that. Now, some people, when they start with a blank spreadsheet, it's just daunting. Like, oh my gosh, what do I do? How do I even use this? So I'm going to spend a little bit of time on some spreadsheet stuff. Sana, are you more familiar with Excel or Google Sheets?
Neither one.
Either one.
I mean, Excel.
Excel. Okay. All right. Good.
Which one's the easiest?
Well, they're the same. I mean, I use Microsoft products a long time, and I got over it and I use Google stuff now. So I use Google Sheets.
Okay,
But
well, let's do Google Sheets then.
either one. Yeah, either one. Lily, what do you prefer?
I'm old school. I use Excel, except that it doesn't work on Apple, so I'm sort of caught in it. That wasn't a very good answer. Excel, but it doesn't matter.
Okay. So yeah, so unless you buy Microsoft for Apple, which is painful, because it comes with numbers, and numbers is a great program, but nobody uses numbers really, but it's a good program.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm learning Google Sheets, but I haven't focused. So.
All right. We'll cover a little bit on that today there. All right. And then Ari, what do you prefer?
I prefer Excel.
Excel.
I'm not really crazy about Google.
No. Okay. All right. Well, as you know, the spreadsheet idea is the same on both, really. I mean, the formula might be a little different, but same ideas, right? So that's fine. Yeah. Okay. So let me open this up here. I have this. This is a Google sheet that I made for, in fact, let me not do it that way. Let's show it a different way. Let me share the screen. Oh, Drake, can you let me share my screen? He didn't make me co-host. My TA. Drake, you there? Drake? Big help. Come on, Drake. Hello. You're supposed to make me co-host. All right, I'll make it into. All right, message him, see if he'll read that. Drake, you there? All right, I've got it. Good. Thank you. Okay, here we go. All right, you can see that better, a little bigger. Bigger. There we go. Okay, so what I did on here for the accelerator program specifically, right? I created an income, and you can change these cells. Let me quick thing on spreadsheets, right? There are columns, which is this A through, it goes forever to the right, A through A, all the way to the right, and then rows, which are numerical number down the left-hand side. These rows and columns put together help create an address for every cell. Every box on a spreadsheet has a cell or an address, and it's just like your physical address at your house. It's where you live. So right now I'm in cell D5, right? D5. And that becomes an address that I can use to tell that cell to manipulate that cell later on if I want to. All right, so that's what this is. At the bottom, I've got these tabs or sheets at the bottom. Right now, we're looking at conservative startup year one, optimistic startup year one, and then some charts. That's another tab I've added down there. You can click the plus sign and add more sheets or tabs. Excel calls them tabs. Google calls them sheets. All right. One other thing I did that was kind of helpful here is I added the months across the top, but if I scroll up and down in the sheet, I don't want the months to roll away. So I froze, it's called freezing a row. So I froze one. So you see how it stays there? It's nice, right? That's helpful because if it goes away, I don't know what month I'm looking at. It's confusing.
Right.
So to do that, you click on the row and then you hit view, freeze one row.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. And I did the same thing with this first column because when I scroll to the right, I don't want to lose that either. See how I'm scrolling and it's changing, but the first column stays there because I would lose, what is this? What row am I on? So again, I click A at the top of the column and I hit view, freeze one column this time. So now that's there.
Okay.
Well, that takes care of that. Okay. So here's income. You can come in here and you can delete that if you want. You can type over it, whatever you want. This is a shared document. So when I share it with you in the notes, you can open it up, make a copy of it, and manipulate it any way you want. The other thing I did is I put some formulas in here. So let's assume for May, I had a $4,000 sales and I had $1,000 in donations. You notice that down here at the subtotal, it automatically added it up. So in here, I have a formula. I said sum cells B2 through B9, whatever's in here. Any of these cells. So no matter what I put in here, it's going to, if I put another 500 in, it's going to add it to it.
Okay.
So that's all there. Under expenses, I added a section on startup. Again, you can change those to match what your situation is, and fixed and variable. And then I have a total down here for these as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's all there. And if you go down to the right, I did total these up across the row as well. So when I click on this, the formula is sum B3, which is way down there. Everything in all of these cells, oops, all of, from here back to here, all of these, all of these, it's not selected all of them for me. All of these get added up and they get to be this total here. So when you have the set up, no matter what you put in there, it automatically shows, right? So that's really helpful. All right, so what I did is I created a conservative, this is obviously just dummy data that I put in here, but I put in some numbers here for all of this, and you get down to here, I created a little summary. So I have total income for that month, total expenses for that month, and either profit or loss. So that month we made $21.70, the next month we lost $13.30. If you go all the way to the right, at the end, we have a profit of $13,860 on the conservative end, just in this scenario. So I built that one. And then because I said it's helpful to have a range of numbers, not just the one conservative or one optimistic, all I did is I came to this tab down here and I hit duplicate. And it copies it exactly like it was. And then you can come in and now change the numbers to be more optimistic. And change the name down here to just type over and call it optimistic. I already have that. I'm going to delete that one. So just delete this. So here was the edited optimistic one. So remember, we made a little bit of money in the conservative one, and this one, well, are they the same still? Actually, conservative made more. So my numbers don't really vet that out. Let me put a big number in here so we have. We'll make it a lot bigger. Okay, now it should. Well, this formula must not be good. B3 through, oh, it needs to go all the way to, we don't have a good formula there. Let me show you how to make a formula. So you click on the cell, then we click the formula. This is the sigma. It's got all these formulas built in. Click on sum, and it says, okay, what cells do you want to sum? And I can highlight these. I could have typed them in, but I could also highlight them. All right, we go to right there, hit enter, and now it's summed that. Now, I want that same formula to be on each of these rows. So I click this in the corner here, there's a little box. When I put the mouse on, I get the plus sign. If I click and drag that down, it'll bring that relative formula for each row.
Mm-hmm.
And it adds it all up. I lost my formatting. You guys know the paint tool. You can grab that and put it on there, and it grabs the color and the formatting and puts it right on that one. Okay, so that did it. So this should now, this is still not adding up, right, is it?
Yes.
39. So this cell right here, okay, total income, this should equal whatever is in this cell right here, right? Income total.
Thanks.
And total expenses should equal whatever is in this cell. And this formula is income minus expenses. There we go. Now it works.
Okay.
So optimistically, we're going to make 72,000, and that one conservatively, it's only going to make 13,860.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Let me give you other tips on spreadsheets. So if I want to make another tab, I'm going to make another one. And you can drag these tabs or sheets anywhere you want. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to do this as a sample. So you get this blank spreadsheet here. And I want to show you a couple things that I love to point out to people to make spreadsheets more friendly for them. One thing is spreadsheets pick up on patterns really well. It's really smart. One of the most common patterns would be if I was saying days, or let's say it could be, let's just say days of the week because we were just doing months. But if I did Monday and Tuesday, but I don't really want to do Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I don't want to type all that out. So all I have to do is put in 2 of the pattern, right? And then highlight the 2 of them. See how I've highlighted both of them? And I get this little box in the corner again. And I get the plus sign on it when I put my mouse on it. And I drag it over to Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And it says, oh, you're doing days of the month? We'll finish that pattern out for you.
Oh, that is so cool.
Here's another one it'll do. I mean, even to this degree, like if you're naming them this way, highlight the pattern and it does the same format for you there.
Okay, I like that.
If you're doing January, Feb, right? You want the days of the months. It even matches the style you have it in. I said, oh, I want one more. I just highlight these 2 guys and do one more. I got December. It does it with numbers too. So it'll go down. So let's say I'm doing 3, 5, 7. Oops, that's not a good pattern there. Let's just do 3, 5. 3, 5. And you highlight the 2, get the corner plus, drag it down, and now it's doing 2.
Oh, okay.
All right. So that's a big.
Yes, indeed.
Helps you get things done. If you wanted to put, let me delete, highlight and delete these. Okay. And let's call this sales again. And let's say I put in 450. Let me put some numbers in. And let's say these need to be dollars. I can highlight those cells and then click the dollar icon in the menu. Dollars for you. And you can say, well, I don't really want the cents. So I could reduce the decimal places by 2. And now it's the dollars that way. And it always does words left justified and always does numbers right justified. So you can select all these and put this right justified. Now they look better. I can highlight those again, and I can make it bold and make the background yellow. Okay. It's looking better, right? And then let's say I wanted to chart this. I can highlight all of this, and I can hit Insert Chart. And it does all kinds of charts. All right, so it says, okay, do you want that kind of chart? That's a pie chart.
Okay.
You want this kind of chart? Do you want a line chart? All right, let's say I like that chart. And you can pick which data, but because we highlighted that one cell, that's what's showing up in there. You can come in here and change the title of this, sales for July 1st. And it's on top of our data, so we want to move this down. So we just drag this down here, and it's still on our spreadsheet. It doesn't go in our way. It's got all that. I can format this, change colors, lines, data labels. That's nice. It puts the amount on there. Show a little trend line in the background. So you see how it is how that easy it is to look. You can put grid lines in if you want. You can change the color of this fill color, or you can say, I want this to be orange because that was your big month. So it's nice. It does a lot with you there. Okay. Any
Yep.
questions on budgeting or spreadsheet?
And this is similar to the Google Sheets.
This
The
is
other-
Google Sheets. Yeah, this is Google. I'm showing you Google Sheets. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see.
Yeah. This is Google Sheets. But it works a lot like so. Yeah.
Excel. That's what I meant.
Yeah, yeah. The good thing about this also is you could always save this as you can download it as an Excel sheet, Excel file.
Oh, okay.
If somebody's just, and you can open Excel files in here and edit them in Google Sheets.
So if somebody sent you an Excel file, you can open it in Google Sheets,
Right, yeah,
or vice versa, I'm guessing.
right, right. Yeah, you'd have to share that if I wanted to share this with somebody like Ari just does Excel, I would have to save this, download it as Excel for her and send it to her.
Okay.
But if somebody sent me an Excel, I could open it up in here and it would convert it fine. Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's see. What else do I have for you? I think the final thing on here, if I stop sharing. We talked about formulas. I can show you one more thing on that. That's for somebody in a class not too long ago. Go back here. So they were asking the question, if we go back to conservative here. If they, maybe it's in here. Okay, so if you, there's a way that, because we talked about variable costs. So let's assume you had a big spike in sales. You would also want your variable expenses to go up with it from a forecasting, right? So like if you had supply costs that go along with sales, so if you deplete your sales, then your inventory through sales, then you need to buy more material to replace your inventory. So you can have a formula that's based on whatever your sales is in this month. Your expenses perhaps the next month would be higher because it's tied to that. So I think I can get an example in here. So if I go to, let's put, and let's say it's, $20 each month. Oh, by the way, if your pattern is the same, you just pick one of them and drag it across, it'll keep the same number duplicated. Which is nice. All right, let's go back up here. So October, we went from 7,000 to 8,000. So in November, I know you could make this number a factor of sales, meaning we want this to compute based on the sales of the previous month, right? So this, let me back up, instead of doing it 20 each month. I switch screens, what happened? Here we go. I'm going to delete these again. I'm going to put 20 in there just for the first one, but I want this to be based on the sales of the previous month. So B3 is the sales, right? That's the sale. So I want this one to equal B3, whatever's in B3, which is our sales, which is 4,000. We want to, the cost of goods is a factor of that times 0.3. So let's start with 1,000 here. Okay. So this 1,200 is based on the sales of the previous month.
Okay.
A third of that cost, right? So if sales go down, we don't need to buy as much new material. That's the idea. So we're taking this formula, which is B3 times 0.3, and we're going to copy that all the way across here. Let's go do it right there. And now see how it's a variable cost based on the sales of the previous month.
Okay.
So you can do those kind of what if scenarios or those formulas so that it's working for you based on, you know, if this number changes, then it changes the numbers automatically. That's the idea. It's getting fancy, but that's what that is. Okay, so we talked about formulas, multiple duplicate columns. You can copy columns, insert columns, drag columns around, create the new tabs at the bottom, copy this as an Excel file or a PDF, or save it as a Google Sheet and let somebody else who has Google Sheets work in it if they wanted to. Right. Okay. All right. Anything else? It's pretty simple. The hard part's just getting in there and doing it. Just doing it and not leaving stuff out, thinking through everything and put it in there. So here's the final last tip. The most important thing to remember is to be conservative with your assumptions and projections. Better to underestimate revenue and overestimate expenses than the reverse. That'll get you in trouble if you don't. So that's the thing. But a lot of people just I think they just get lazy, or they think, oh, I'm not a numbers person, I don't want to do the numbers. But it's just really important to have a guideline. So I give you an example. I do a bike ride across the state of Florida every year, and the prices keep going up, you know, gas and everything else. I pay for hotels and food and all kinds of things. And I use a spreadsheet to kind of estimate what I'm going to charge people for it. Well, I don't know I've got a cutoff how many people I can take on the trip, but I don't know if I'm going to sell it every year or not. So I have to run scenarios to make sure all my costs are covered. So it's not costing me any money, because I wanted to cover my hobby of cycling and not cost me anything. So 28 years into this, I still have to do a model every year to figure out what it's going to cost. And these spreadsheets help that process to kind of figure that out. Just because I can't just guess. I've got to know what all the costs are and what they all add up to be, and what that is divided by how many people we're going to have, which would be the equivalent to sales, right? How much sales we're going to have to cover that. That helps the pricing. So we said the hardest number to guess is revenue, and one of the reasons is because we don't know how many we're going to sell. And one of the reasons we don't know how many we're going to sell is because we don't know if we've priced it right. That's the other part of it. And so spreadsheets really help create a helpful tool for building out the right pricing model for what it is you're selling. You figure out what it's going to take to cover all the costs, if it makes sense or not. Ari, how will you use this in your situation? What do you need to build a budget for?
Honestly, I have no idea.
Okay. You're just learning. You're just a good learner. You just want to learn.
Yeah, I mean, I realize you offer a lot of good practical classes.
Yes.
So I'm intrigued by it. And
Good.
so I'm learning. This is a good overview.
Yeah.
Just a taste of so many different things.
Yes.
This is just awesome. I love it.
Good. Fantastic. All right. Well, I know what Sana's working on, and I know what Lily's working on. So they've got their own budgets they're working on for things too. So that's good. Anything else?
Well, I'm glad you went over this so that when I hire somebody else to do this, I know what they should be doing.
Right. Exactly. Kind of know what
The
to look for.
the older I get, the less I want to stare at a computer screen.
I'm
So
with
much
you.
better to be had instead of sitting staring at a computer.
Right, right. Now you're equipped with some knowledge to make sure they're doing the right
Right.
thing. Yeah.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Yes. Yes. Lily, any other budget tips you would have?
Well, I like yours about, I mean, I know it's not unique to you, but the idea of best case, worst case, and most
Yeah,
likely
yeah.
case.
Yeah.
I think it's an easy thing to skip because it's you sort of get lazy. Like, all right, we've done one thing. That's enough. We
Right.
don't have to do two
Yeah.
more.
Right.
But I think that's really useful.
Yeah.
And with the spreadsheet, it's pretty simple.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
You're right. After you've created one, why not just duplicate it and then change some of the numbers so that you create another scenario? It's not
Yeah,
that
that was a
Right.
good tip. Great
Yeah.
tip.
right. Because if you put them on the
The
same
one thing
sheet,
I'd like to hear people's thing, because the one thing I'm trying to make a habit, which I'm having trouble, is to really track your expenses. I mean, sort of fairly diligently. I mean, not down to each thing, but like if you can capture 90% of your expenses. Does anyone do that, or does anyone have any comment on that? Because I think it's a good thing to do, and I find it a habit difficult to cultivate.
yeah, if you're creating history by your own expenses, then that will clarify your budget for the future a lot better than whatever you guess, right? So having those real expenses, you can kind of, even if you compare it to your budget, that gives you a good idea too. But yeah, there's some good programs for that. In other words, from QuickBooks to Wave is a free accounting tool that I use that's tied to my bank account, and all my bank expenses that go in and out of there automatically get posted into that accounting. So all I have to do is categorize them so I know, what category they go into. And it learns that too. Once it identifies this vendor associated with this category, then it's really easy for it to keep automatically doing. But yeah, that's a good point to really understand the real expenses that are going through there.